If we're talking too much, you can kind of give us some, like send us a little message for timing.
Yep, I can shoot you a message directly.
Okay, because
the chat box.
Yeah, we do tend to get pretty passionate about this, so we don't want to go over.
Yeah, no, I can keep a look on the time.
Okay. Picture. Yeah. We have and after 2012. So we need to be done by.
Mindy,
Okay.
would you mind muting your line? We're about to get started.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Conversation Project Community Call. My name is Naomi Fedna, and I'll be your host for today's call. And while we're waiting for more people to join, I'm just going to run over a few Webex tips and tricks. Sometimes the platform can be a little bit tricky. So if you have any questions or comments at any point during the call, feel free to type it into the chat box at the bottom of your screen and send it to all participants. That way everybody on the call can see your comment. But you can also use the raise your hand icon, which is located on the right-hand side, and we'll call on you to voice your question or comment. And if you're having any technical difficulties, please chat directly to host. So that same drop-down menu where you can click all participants, click host, and the message will go directly to me and I'll be able to help you out. So we're going to get things started in the chat box. So on the right-hand side of the screen, in the chat box, type your answer to this question. Are you a member of a congregation? And if so, which one? And where is it located? So First Parish in Lincoln, Mass. My church is in Massachusetts, called the Livingstone Church. Ronnie church is in, so she attends a congregation or Hadash in Sandy Springs, Georgia. And we have someone in Abiding Savior Lutheran Church in South Carolina. Great. All right, so before we dive right in, we want to know where people are joining us from. So to get a sense of where you're all located, please point to where you're calling from on the map. So to do this, use the arrow key in the upper left-hand corner on your screen, right above the Webex presentation that you're viewing, and then click the arrow key, and then click on the map where you're located. So both Rosemary and I are in Massachusetts. We have someone calling from Maine, Washington State, California, Georgia. Great. Looks like we have a good group with us today. All right, so I'm going to pass off the ball to Rosemary, and she'll get us started.
Thank you, Naomi. I really appreciate your getting us all settled here and getting us started on our call. And thank you, everyone, for joining today's community call. We recognize that you are very, very busy people, and we hope that what we present today will be helpful to you for doing the work you are committed to doing in your communities and with your faith partners there. I'm looking through the call list of people's names that I can see. I'm happy to welcome back some familiar names and so happy to see some new folks on this call. We are especially grateful to the guest presenters who are joining us today from the Advanced Care Planning Team in Larimer County, Colorado. Mindy Rickard and Eva Ireland, thanks so much for being with us today and being, I think, the true value-added team and content on this call. I'll be introducing Mindy and Eva a little more fully later in the call. They're going to talk about their work with faith communities and supporting more people to have the conversation about what matters most when it comes to living and dying. So hang on for a few minutes. I'll be doing some introductory comments and then welcoming Mindy and Eva into the conversation. Now, to succeed in our shared aspiration, the Conversation Project aims to reach people, as you know, with our tools and message, where they live, where they work, and where they pray. In our efforts to reach the praying cohort, we have developed resources for lay and clergy leaders that can prepare them to embed sustainable programming designed to introduce advanced care planning in their familiar settings. One of the chief ways we aim to highlight and support congregational efforts is the campaign we call Conversation Sabbath. So this year, Conversation Sabbath is going to be October 25th to November 3rd, and we'll talk more about how that works and why we chose those dates a little bit later in our call. But as you know, Conversation Sabbath is a campaign that extends a specific invitation to faith leaders to take time to deliver a sermon on a topic related to end of life and encourages people to begin planning ahead and having conversations about their hopes and fears, their wishes and requests, their beliefs and traditions. It's 2 weekends, 2 Fridays, 2 Saturdays, and 2 Sundays to accommodate different calendars and needs in a congregation, and it includes a week in between so that people can offer programs as well as sermons about advanced care planning and end-of-life issues. Now, we know that different congregations will offer sermons or programming at other times of the year that better suit their liturgical calendars. And we really want to acknowledge that you know your community best and will make decisions about when to take up this invitation for Conversation Sabbath. Sabbath is a special time, a time we intentionally set aside. It's a time for rest, but it's also a time for worship and time to attend to what is holy. It's in this broader sense of recognizing that reflection and conversations about mortality are holy, that the gift of speaking from the heart and planning ahead so that the people most important to us are not left in the dark about our wishes, these are holy conversations. And we appreciate that clergy and faith communities have a crucial role in supporting individuals and families through illness, loss, and grief. We care for one another from cradle to grave. That is, we gather to mark major life events from birth through death. Clergy leaders help people make meaning in the face of challenge and suffering, and our communities celebrate with their members in sorrow as well as in joy. So Conversation Sabbath is designed as an opportunity for clergy to address one of the big challenges that everyone faces, the universal reality of human mortality. But it's designed not to be a sad occasion, but a chance to open up the closet, as it were, on fear and bring those fears out into the light. It's an opportunity to preach openly and with theological grounding. Still, I think some of you know, not only do I have a background in nursing and hospice, but I'm also a Unitarian Universalist minister. I've been a preacher. I've been up there and faced this challenge. And all of my colleagues out there are still human. And humans can be so reluctant to initiate the conversation about mortality, about illness, about aging. I think it's because we are simply less practiced in these conversations. Though I also believe that we are getting better, particularly as baby boomers do what they traditionally do about something that affects this age cohort. They make some good noise about it. They're getting us to talk and open up. They're asking for more help in having the conversations they recognize they need to have. But of course, we know it's also a conversation for all ages. So the Conversation Project is here to help folks get even better at initiating the conversation. We have our signature conversation starter kits and a variety of resources that are available online, including ones specifically designed for faith communities. We have examples of how sermons, pastoral care, and programming using the Conversation Project, as well as other tools, can create a framework to support the crucial decisions we may need to make in the face of serious, advancing, or terminal illness. Now, many people regard their congregations as a kind of extended spiritual family. They meet regularly and support one another in times of joy and sorrow. They learn together about their faith, theology, and traditions, things that guide one in the face of challenge. And that's some of the reasons why congregations are good places to initiate conversations about these challenging topics. For those of you who are longtime friends of the Conversation Project and sharing this work, you've seen this explanation before, but I just want to review it clearly so that as you think about working in your own congregation or partnering with faith communities, you have this as like, okay, here are the reasons why we're reaching out to this group of folks. For one, they are existing communities. That is, they're naturally occurring groups. They live and they work and they gather together around shared values, so it makes it easier to have a conversation with people who have a shared language or shared tradition. Excuse me. I believe that congregations gather week after week with messages that encourage more compassion and less fear. And those are two things we certainly need if we're going to take on talking about our mortality and the challenging ethical dilemmas we may face in the ICU. Congregations are storytelling communities. They share stories because stories are these things that help us to learn and to remember. They teach us by example or in our stories about what to do when we're faced with something difficult in our lives. They are the carriers of lessons that we've learned, and they can be ways that we motivate people to action. We see that these holy places are also communities that are sowing seeds of culture change. I talk about congregations sometimes as being countercultural places. Places where if the culture is saying one thing, sometimes congregations are just trying to be a bulwark against them or the forefront for changing them. So for example, if we say as a culture we're afraid to talk about death and dying, congregations are ideal places to lift up the message that we can push against that view, to say we're not afraid, that we're prepared, we're ready to face our mortality, we're prepared, we're ready to have faithful, values-based conversations. We just need to open the doors to those conversations. And frankly, what I've seen in my work is that congregations like to eat together. So this is a wonderful way to sort of mirror a family gathering, to gather around familiar food or what we might call comfort food and have a focused conversation about what matters most about living and the kinds of choices we might make in the face of illness. We're seeing great programs being held around the country, death over dinner, or sometimes called death over deli, death over dessert, but it's a way to advertise in a lighthearted way to say, we're going to come together, do something really familiar, and then do something a little bit challenging, but it's okay, we're together, we know what it's like when we're together, it's fun. And finally, congregations are places that are poised to support people who have serious, life-threatening illness, people who are sick, their caregivers, and their healthcare teams. We strengthen all the parties in this care dynamic, upholding people in their suffering, strengthening and supporting caregivers, and addressing the moral distress that professional healthcare providers encounter when they, and encourage them to have meaningful dialogue with patients and their families about what matters most and not just what's the matter with them. So these are some of the reasons why we have we have launched this idea of having Conversation Sabbath, to get people preaching and teaching about this subject. For those of you who have been on earlier calls, you've heard me talk a little bit about one of my favorite stories that has come from a congregant who has felt supported when he heard his rabbi give a sermon on this topic. A few years ago, Rabbi Esther Adler gave her Rosh Hashanah sermon at Mount Zion Temple in St. Paul, Minnesota. And afterwards, she received a very touching letter from an intensive care doctor who thanked her for being able to speak so frankly and so compassionately about this topic on this high holy day, which for those of you who are Jewish know, it's actually one of the most well-attended services of the year. He said that every day in his work, he sees families struggling to make decisions about things they had never discussed before. They were not prepared. They had not planned ahead. And he wondered, isn't there someone else in the culture, in society, who could be helping us talk about this before people come to the ICU? And he saw his answer that day in his rabbi. And he closed his letter by asking her to please keep talking so that more people will be better prepared because they had the conversation. We hope that stories like this inspire you to think more about partnering with congregations. A tool that can help you when you want to approach a congregation is something we've placed online. It's a case study about the Bethel AME Church in Boston. At Bethel, they've grown a beautiful sustained ministry called Planning Ahead. This program grew out of an initial workshop where 40 people came and did a workshop on using the Conversation Starter Kit. Now, the church convenes small groups 3 times a year to have the conversation, to complete their personal advanced care planning documents that are appropriate in their state, and to celebrate one another's faith and courage with a dinner at the end of the year. The ministers take turns preaching about planning ahead, and they have their own Planning Ahead Sunday. It's not during Conversation Sabbath, but it is inspired by that. I attended the most recent Planning Ahead Sunday in Boston at Bethel and heard stories from people of all ages who told me about their gratitude that they had had the meaningful conversations they needed to have with family members so that when their grandmother died or their father or their sister died, it was, of course, profoundly sad, but they reported they didn't feel guilty or remorseful. They weren't wondering if they'd done all they could. They did what they talked about, and there was peace and grace in the last days and hours. That's what we're aiming for. We're aiming to return to the sacred and not just the scared. And to advance that aim, as you know, we've developed lots of materials that are available online for congregations, including our Getting Started in Congregations guide. It's available on our website. We hope you'll share it with your clergy and lay leaders. And like all of our resources, they're there to share generously. Now, we've long maintained that the conversation is a gift, especially to those who may become our caregivers. It's a gift that they will have some insight about the often complex decisions they may need to make on behalf of us or a family or a friend in the event that they can't speak for themselves. We hope that as more congregations hear about Conversation Sabbath, it will help transform our culture from one that doesn't talk about dying to one that does. Now, on last year's call, we highlighted the work of several community-based and healthcare organizations that are doing outreach to provide expertise and program leaders to come into congregations in their service area. We heard from Reimagine in New York and San Francisco, Healthy York in Pennsylvania, and Trinity Hospice in Augusta, Georgia. And you can find that recording of that call if you want to hear specifically about examples from those 3 communities. And we continue to hear from healthcare organizations that are working to team with congregations to encourage more conversations and complete important paperwork of assigning a healthcare agent, doing a muster of pulse, and ensuring that people who matter most are well informed of their wishes. So today, we are continuing in that, and we are delighted to have a team from Larimer County, Colorado, to share their widespread efforts to partner with faith communities. Eva Ireland is a guide with the Larimer Advanced Care Planning Team. She draws on 12 years of experience as a hospice chaplain, and her background in health education and humanities, as well as her seminary training, help her guide people through the crucial conversations and work of doing advanced care planning. It's nice to know that when she has some spare time, Eva enjoys swimming, going out hiking, and creating as many new recipes as time allows. I hope you have lots of time for that. I know you're a busy person, Eva. And her team partner, Mindy Rickard, is the Advanced Care Planning Team Project Coordinator. She is absolutely passionate about advanced care planning. She has a degree in gerontology and decades of experience supporting people in making informed decisions about their health. In her spare time, which I think is rare as well, Mindy enjoys riding her Morgan horses, reading, cooking, and walking. Eva and Mindy, thank you so much for being with us today, and I'm happy to have you now lead the presentation.
Thank you so much, Rosemary. This is Mindy, and Eva and I are sharing a computer, so you'll hear both of us on and off. We're so excited to be here today. If you want to go to the first slide. We wanted to talk a little bit about where we started. Our program started in 2016, in June of 2016, and I had been a volunteer Conversation Project facilitator since 2014. I was very excited to be part of this grant and wanted to do the Conversation Sabbath from the very beginning. That was hard, and it has taken us 3 years to kind of really get our momentum going in the faith community. When we first started, I was lucky enough to work in Estes Park, Colorado, which is a small mountain community, the gateway to Rocky Mountain National Park here in Larimer County. They have a very active interfaith organization, and they were very excited about the Conversation Sabbath and bringing that to some of their churches. So we actually began with a little conversation project mini training with the faith leaders that were interested, and they were able to identify at least a few congregation leaders that wanted to get more information. And so at that point, we kind of developed a little bit of a how-to list of how to have folks bring this to their congregation. And it was really saying what has worked well in the past with your congregation, with your church family, when you've brought new ideas and new programs in, and that was a great place to start. Also identifying folks within the organization that maybe were medical professionals that would like to take this forward. And then actually having advanced care planning materials and the conversation starter kits available within the faith community, so that they were having people within the community that understood their faith going through the documents and answering those spiritual questions that often come up as people do their advanced care planning. One of our early successes was at our local American Baptist church. They had a parish nurse who just happened to have a very strong passion for advanced care planning, and she was a driving force to get 40% of their congregation over the age of 18 to get their documents done, which was really exciting. Could I get the next slide, please? Oh, here we go. That's good. So our next program success early on was we were approached by two members of our local Church of Jesus Christ, the LDS community, and one was a nurse practitioner and who had worked in ICU and was very passionate about this. We made that connection through a fellow coworker here at the Health District, and she was part of the Relief Society in Larimer County. Those ladies went through a 2-day training to become facilitators. In that, they learned how to facilitate the Conversation Project, how to go through all of the issues around filling out the paperwork for Colorado-specific paperwork, and then they were able to go on and speak in their various wards about advanced care planning. And then they had our team and our volunteers come in, and we did a big signing party at one of their wards, which was extremely well attended. So that was those were a couple of the big wins early on. I'm going to turn it over to Eva now to talk about some of our support group outreach.
Hello, everybody. So glad to be on this call with you today. Yes, another area that we have focused on is reaching out to faith communities and asking, are there support groups that we might come in and share our information with? And some of the ones that have been successful, a widow support group that these were women that were in their 70s, 80s, and one of them was 92. And these are women who had not been the main organizer of financial or paperwork in their homes. So when it came to making these changes at this point in their life, to be able to sit with them in conversation, and as Rosemary was talking about the storytelling, there was a lot of storytelling in that particular group, and then another women's support group that I was part of, where the Foundation Evangelical community invited me in, and to be able to assist these women in doing something that was scary for them. So we have found that having sometimes what are small groups, the first group that I was with at the Foundation Church was a small group of just 4 women. But that didn't stop me from engaging with them or saying this isn't enough, we need more people. But what happened from that is they led me on to the next support group in that community, and it was through word of mouth that they heard about it. So that is one arena that people may choose to look into and see what other groups might there be, subgroups in the community. Next slide, please. So yes, some other successes that we've had. Mindy was talking about the parish nurse that was at the Estes Park church there, and the success of having 40% of the congregants be able to sign up. Well, from that, we also had connections with the Larimer County Faith Nursing Group, and Mindy presented just our general presentation on the advanced care planning that we do here at the office, what we offer, in addition to talking with the nurses and caregivers about how we can present at their faith communities, how we would value their faith communities' personal needs and values, and we would do our best to be able to be sensitive to those issues. And from that group, not only were there individuals that hadn't had their directives done, but they did connect us with a number of their faith communities that we were able to go into, from sitting with them after church at a coffee to going in and talking with the pastors about how we can bring this to their communities. So that's another avenue that people might look at, is the faith nursing groups in the area. And something that has been very successful for us also is the clinic here in town. It's a Catholic clinic, St. Luke's Medical Clinic, and we've been able to present to their staff in 2 different ways. One is to share with them what we offer here at the county and to have referrals, but also we've been able to do a clinical training for them to help them better understand the need for advanced care planning, as well as share the conversation project with them, to be able to stimulate that idea of talking with their clients that come in about the need for advanced directives, about the need for planning. And in this particular community, one of the things that we are sensitive to is, being that it's a Catholic community, that we looked up the Catholic advance directives, and in the Larimer County, we've been able to share those. And Mindy recently sat with an individual and went through the Catholic advance directive, knowing that there's a sensitivity around not advancing death and not prolonging life, to really look at what that faith community needs. And that's something else we've done in the Jewish community that we're looking to present in the future to the synagogue. And we do our homework here by doing some reading about what are the particular needs in that community. Next slide here. Yes. And collaborations. Recently, we gave a presentation at the county, the Interfaith Council. We presented to them along with the group that is working with suicide prevention and connections, who works with mental health issues here in the county. We also presented at an end-of-life event at a local Unitarian church. This was an all-day event, 9 to 3, where they had speakers come in from a death doula to funeral arrangements to green burials to advanced directives, and talking about the Conversation Project. And our upcoming one that's happening is the Health Caravan. It's health services and testing offered at the First Christian Church, along with us offering information on advanced directives. So our work in collaboration also has our information out there, making connections, and we are always surprised where people come in from because of our reaching out to different communities and coming together to serve collectively. Next slide.
So as you can see, we offer a lot of different, we call it a menu of presentations that we can do. We've really found that there's a lot of hunger for knowledge, and the faith community is often looking for speakers that can come in not only for their maybe after service coffee or a support group, or we did one, it was the Elderberries, my favorite name, had me come and speak at their potlucks, which that was a bonus. But we really found that when we're talking to faith communities, if we have something to give them that says, these are the things that we can come in, we can custom make a presentation based around the Conversation Project just for your community. And as we've done this, and to echo what Eva said, we've actually done some research and read everything that we can get our hands on before we present in a new faith community, because we want to be sensitive to some of the things that may come up. We love it when we go in, and just recently I was at a local Presbyterian church, and their faith leader, actually she used end of life throughout her sermon, and it was really wonderful. And then we ended up having coffee and ice cream, and I got to do a 45-minute presentation, and we've had a lot of people move forward and get their documents done from that. So we will do hybrids. We've also added, we've kind of discovered that after doing this for a while, we needed to branch out a little bit as far as what kind of events we could offer. So we do have some film-based events that we've done. We do a Facing Your Fears, straight talk about the dying process, which is a wonderful video out of Pathways Hospice in New Mexico. Doing Being Mortal, showing the frontline video from Dr. Gowande, and having a discussion after that. we have a bucket list presentation that we do with various TED Talks, and we're just getting ready to partner with AARP and one of our local hospitals to do a presentation and conversation around the end game. Next slide. So one of the big things that we've done and that we're excited to bring to the faith community, we're on our second session of doing the book club for mortals, and now it's the book club and more for mortals, which is a tool that we hope will come into a lot of our local faith communities where they can have some ongoing discussions and possibly custom work those discussions to their unique faith communities. So we are continuing to do that, and that's one of the ways that we get the word out and keep people engaged. And that is my last slide, and we're open for questions, and we would love to help with anything that we can for the group.
Thank you so much, Eva and Mindy. What you're doing.
Sorry, there's one more slide.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
No, that's great. Oh, good, planning for the future. Yay.
Yes, very. Just a little bit about what we have to look forward to. And Stephen's Ministry, that's another area that you can look at in your cities there to reach out to see if churches have the Stephen's Ministry. I presented the other night when I made the slides, it was coming up. And this is a group of individuals who work specifically with individuals in their faith community that are having health challenges. And when I presented the other night, they were so happy to have this information, and we went through the Conversation Project as a way to educate them in conversations that they may have with individuals that they're sitting with. Also, we're going to be offering an event at church during Conversation Sabbath week, and the pastors are so happy to have the material available to them to help them with this, and I have a date scheduled to sit with them and help them create this together. And we're going to be meeting once again with the LDS Church, the elders from 9 wards, and the anticipation is 100 of those members, elders from the church, coming to further their education in their community. And then also at a church here in town called Timberline, and it's one of the mega churches, and they're looking to plan an event, as well as something that we're also excited about is to reach out to a community that isn't often emphasized in church communities. And St. Luke's Lutheran Church asked us if in our advertising and our flyer that we would announce this to the LGBTQ community as well, to welcome them to our presentation in 2 weeks. So we're continuing our work and continuing our outreach, and really pleased to have this opportunity to work with the church and faith communities here in Fort Collins. Thank you, and as Mindy mentioned, we are open to questions at this time.
Well, I wanted to start with thanking you both again for this terrific presentation and inspiring us with the work that you're doing, reminding people that their work began back in 2016, reaching out to faith communities, and it does tend to be a long runway sometimes, but starting and then maintaining the work of doing relationship building is really, really key. To ask a question of Mindy or Eva, or just a comment on anything that they're doing, please use the chat box and respond to all participants. And if you want to raise your hand, I think that Naomi would be able to unmute you so that you could speak and share with us too what's worked for you, or what are you planning in your areas. We'd be interested to hear. While I wait for the chat to light up, or for someone to raise their hand. I just want to go back, and there's so much that you were talking about, Mindy and Eva, that I want to just kind of put a highlighter through. One thing I was impressed by is the fact that you do your homework about the faith community you're going to be doing outreach to learn a little bit about their faith before you actually go in to do a presentation. And while that wouldn't possibly make you experts in their faith tradition, it is really a very wonderful sign of respect that you want to be familiar and be conversant with them as you're getting to know them. I also want to add that another way to be respectful is to invite one of the clergy leaders from whatever group you're going to be presenting at to be present, to be on hand, to bear witness, and to learn along with everyone else in the congregation. Not only is that an opportunity for the person to be learning, it is also a wonderful sign, kind of an endorsement to the room, to the people in the room, that this is something that their clergy person is supporting and is learning too, along with them. I think Karen McDonald is trying to raise her hand. Can we unmute Karen? Naomi? Okay.
Yeah, I think it was, I see a hand raised next to Donna's name, and I unmuted her. I don't see it.
Okay, so there's a comment from Karen, I'm sorry, that they are in the runway building relationships with local faith leaders regarding Conversation Sabbath and advanced care planning. And she appreciates having the ideas that they can try. And I wanted to say that, you know, sometimes Conversation Sabbath, it's a way to focus this idea and really use it as an opportunity to leverage some activity in your community. Sometimes it's the first season that people are hearing about this idea. So it actually is a time to kick off planning and then leads people to do things at National Healthcare Decisions Day in April. So Donna.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Donna.
Hi. It was a pleasure to listen to the conversation today. I'm a faith community nurse at our parish. We just got that program up and running after 2 years of laying groundwork, but that started this January. I'm recently retired from the local hospital. I'm also active with the local Faith Community Nurse Group here in Anderson, and then also with South Carolina Faith Community Nurses Association. The director of the spiritual care at the hospital had asked me to become involved in this, and I went through training in Columbia, South Carolina, and what we're doing is what we call serious illness conversations, and I'm working with the clergy department at the hospital to train clinicians on how to have these conversations based on Dr. Gawande's work. There's that 12-minute video on YouTube with, oh my goodness, I'm blanking on her name, but she did a demonstration on having a serious illness conversation with one of her patients. So we've been doing that training with our local care providers. In addition to that, I've been trained in something that's out there now called the Hello Game. And actually, I have that lined up to start as an exercise in our congregation. And that's like a little passport book of 33 questions that people can have a conversation in small groups about, you know, their values and what they would like to have done just to get the conversation started. And I've also pulled your booklets offline. I find them very helpful, and I'm working with a couple right now. The woman's husband's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. She has health issues, and she approached me about getting some advanced planning done. So I've been working with them. But your resources online for Conversation Project are excellent. I just wanted to make you aware that there is a grant, a Blue Cross Blue Shield grant in South Carolina that we're working with to do this training to get out to the clinicians, and then I'm taking it into my church, and other faith community nurses are taking it into their church. So there's a lot of engagement going on into getting folks to do their healthcare proxies or power of attorneys or whatever is appropriate for your state. And I would encourage you, if you want to look at some of that, My Choice It's my Care, My Choices.
Yeah.
I'll look up that's the program. There's a website there that shows what we're doing in South Carolina.
Super.
My Life, My Choices. That's what it is. My Life, My Choices.
I like my choices, exactly. And Donna, thank you so much for sharing that. I think Tisla Curtis's ears are probably now ringing and buzzing. And Tisla, if you wanted to add into the chat a website where people can look at my choices, I'm sure they would love to see the work that you all are doing down in partnership. But Donna, thanks so much for that. And yes, the Hello Game is another tool to bring into congregations, non-confrontational way to do that, as is, I love the idea that our friends at Larimer County talked about the bucket list presentation, that it's a way to kind of go in and talk with folks kind of a little bit under the radar. They're familiar with that notion of a bucket list, and what might also be included as well, your advanced care planning documents, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Sorry, go ahead.
Just to jump in, this is Mindy. Just the bucket list has been a great tool. We do a lot with Colorado State University, which is here in Fort Collins, and as we go in and do employee campaigns and work with their employees, the bucket list has been extremely popular because it really is kind of under the radar, and so we're happy to share that with folks. The other thing, you mentioned the Hello Game. We're really excited. In September, we're going to use, it's called the Death Act. So we're going to try that out with our book club for mortals and see how that goes over.
Great. Lots of resources out there that people can be using. Val Walker just chatted in, where can I find the bucket list presentation? So is that a format, some slides you're able to share with us that we can send out as a follow-up to this call?
It's actually kind of I compiled a lot of TED Talk videos, but I'd be happy to share that. It's kind of a work in progress, but I would definitely be happy to share that.
Great. That would be, you know, sometimes it's just so helpful to have a starting point, a couple of ideas that other people don't have to reinvent the wheel. And as everyone on this call knows, we're all about don't reinvent the wheel, but build on what other folks have been doing, which is why we come together and share our information and what's worked and what the challenges have been. Susan Lawrence echoes your comment that the Deaf Deck has been a good icebreaker at our Twin Cities-based Minnesota Deaf Collaborative, very well received. And Donna, thank you for putting in the website for My Life, My Choices in South Carolina. It's a tremendous initiative that's been going on there. One of the things that folks in South Carolina are doing in other places, I think I've got this right, is, and this is another way that health systems can be partnering with congregations, is some of your cities or some of your states or counties have electronic records that you're able to take someone's advanced care planning documents, their healthcare agent or durable power of attorney forms, and their advanced care planning documents with their wishes, anything from 5 wishes to a specific document you've created in your state. Have people fill those out and have them scanned directly into their healthcare system that they're participating in. And some folks are they're doing these programs where they're actually coming with their scanners and their computers, helping people to fill out these documents, and right there in the church lobby or the meeting hall, scanning those documents in for people so that they're ready and available when someone is in the hospital and they need to access that information. They're being able to find it in their electronic records. So that's a tremendous, that's another program that could be used. Any other questions or comments in the chat box, or anyone else want to raise their hand that you can see, Naomi? I am so pleased about one of the things that you all talked about in doing your book club for mortals. that you got the feedback from one of your sponsoring organizations to please add to the information that there's an explicit invitation to the LGBT community. I think that's a wonderful thing for us to remember, that the work that we're doing may be internal to some congregations, and there might also be a public offering like the book club that happens in a library setting. But whenever we're doing our programming, just being mindful of making sure our invitation is broad and welcoming so that we can be working always on the equity factor in access to this information and in access to excellent care. So whether it's putting a rainbow flag on that to say people are welcome, or just the phrase all are welcome here, to making sure that people understand we'll have an ASL interpreter, or if you're in a bilingual community that you'll have interpreters there, or documents in a second language that's key in your area. Also, just looking for those partners in the community who are already serving, say, a non-English speaking community. And we make a special outreach to those leaders and say, we're here for you too. We'll find, or we have someone who speaks another language, or could we work together so that we can be presenting this in your community with culturally sensitive documents or appropriate language documents. And also the idea that we're going out and we're asking questions. I think that Mindy or Eva, one of you spoke to this, that you go first and you ask in a congregation, so what has worked well in the past when you've tried to introduce a new idea? And letting people see as they're talking about it, oh, yes, we make changes here, we innovate here, we do new things here. Here are the places where we've had some challenges, but here are the things that have really worked. And when we listen to that information, it's all part of our building our relationship and strengthening it, that this is always an invitation, it's not an imposition. We would like to work together. We're making this offering to be of service in partnership with you all. And we want to work it so that it works for your community, for your congregation.
And to follow up on that, Rosemary, this is Mindy. One of our congregations, the Methodist Church in Estes Park, actually had seen something that the library up there had adopted. It's called a discovery bag. They had been doing these for their kids. When kids were interested, for example, in dinosaurs, they would put together a bag that can be checked out at the library that has books on dinosaurs and videos and plastic dinosaurs and all sorts of things. And they thought, wouldn't it be great if we had an advanced care planning discovery bag? And so they put one of those together. They now have 4, and they are often checked out. But the Methodist Church took that idea and actually put it in their church. So as part of their church library and reference room, they have a discovery bag about advanced care planning, which their congregants can go ahead and check out when they are ready to do their documents. It has some videos, usually Facing Your Fears and sometimes Being Mortal, and the book Being Mortal and When Breath Becomes Air, and a notebook that walks people through, of course, starting with the Conversation Starter Kit, and walks people through doing documents. So when people are ready for that, actually one of my team or our volunteers can go in and notarize, witness and notarize documents, and then we do bring our scanners or make copies so that we can share them with our major hospitals here in Larimer County. So it really closes that whole loop, but that's kind of an exciting thing that one of our churches has done.
And it's also, people have asked about measurement. When you can actually count the number of documents you've been able to scan, that's a tremendous, way of counting that the success that you're having and seeing how it's building.
Well, can we brag for a moment?
Oh, please.
in 3 years, we're at almost 4,500 documents completed and scanned into our health systems.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, and thank you so much for all you've shared with us. Friends, it's getting close to the top of the hour. I have to do a little bit of housekeeping wrap up here. This call will be available as a recording. You'll be getting an email with the recording, but you can share it with other folks or come back to it later on our website. And while they're not all faith-related in the future, we have monthly community calls. Our next Conversation Project community call will be on Wednesday, September 18th, 3 to 4 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. It will be go till 4:30. It's the virtual speaker training. So if you have folks in your organization that you want to introduce the Conversation Project to, that's a great call for them to be on. For everyone else, we'll have a call in October on Community Organizing 201 and how to sustain your efforts and avoid the trap of things being a one-off. And an interesting topic that we're hearing a lot of questions about, so we're trying to answer that, is on Wednesday, November 20th. There'll be a presentation on what people are calling solo agers or elder orphans, and how doing advanced care planning and having the conversation with those folks who say, I'm not sure I have somebody who will represent my needs and speak for me in the event I can't speak for myself. So please join us for any one of those community calls. We have on our website a way that we're trying to connect the world. It's our Conversation Champions map. You can go online to theconversationproject.org/get-involved. We'd like you to put your pin in the map. That is, click on there, fill in the information. That way, when someone else from Colorado says, I wonder what's happening in our community, they'll find the Larimer County folks right away and know that, oh, we can talk to them. They're working, we can build some synergies here. So please, after this call, take a moment to look for that and put your pin in. We especially want to be able to pin some more faith communities on that map. You can always stay connected with the Conversation Project on social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and sign up for our general newsletter, our community engagement newsletter, and we have a Conversation Sabbath newsletter. We would love your feedback. Are we doing a good job? Are we meeting your needs? We will, as you close out of this call, you will be immediately redirected to a SurveyMonkey form. That is a survey. It will only take a moment to answer a few questions and rating us on a scale of 1 to 5 about how useful it was. Would you like to learn more about this topic, or any other comments you would like to give us as feedback? So thank you for taking that time. You know we're all about measurement. And thank you for considering sharing Conversation Sabbath in your community, October 25th to November 3rd. Let us know what you're doing. You can hashtag us on Twitter about what's up if you're doing a project for Conversation Sabbath, or send us an email or a text anytime. Let us know what's going on in your community. We are so grateful for you and all that you're doing, building relationships and sharing the conversation and advanced care planning in your communities so that more people's wishes will be respected when their time comes. We're grateful for our funders, the John A. Hartford Foundation and Cambia. We're mostly grateful to all of you on the ground doing this work day in, day out. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful day and a peaceful end of your summer. Take care. Goodbye. Thanks again, Eva and Mindy, thank you so much for being on the call. And Naomi, thanks for hosting. Take care. Goodbye.